All right, so we're gonna have to rework our template to, get it to match our new data, but we're also gonna have to put in some code to load our new data. So let's take a look here. Obviously, Jank module is not a thing anymore in this day and age, so we want, what's it called? Area module from store areas. Okay, get module, blah, blah, blah. Let's go. This dot sections is equal to. Okay, we don't need that. Our state is going to be stored in Vue. So, area module is an area module. We're obviously not going to be loading into sections, which does not exist anymore. Area module is equal to get module. Area module, this dot store. So this part is about the same, and we're not going to go pp anymore. We are going to do area module that initialize, and we get a nice TypeScript code completion there. It's beautiful. We love it. And that's it. Everything is loaded and ready to go. Now, what shall we do here? I don't think we actually need this getter. Although, so here's my inkling. So if I do area module like this, it has the area module here like this with this union of types. Every time I access area module, it has the potential to perhaps be null. And so I'll have to do checks like this everywhere. And I don't want to do that. But if I get rid of this here, then TypeScript is going to be angry when I try to assign null to this thing because it's only allowed to be an area module. So what I can do is I can put an exclamation mark after this. And that says, yeah, don't worry about it. We'll assign null to it, but we won't worry about it. And then I won't have to do this anymore. So it should be good, I believe. Let's get areas. So we'll put a getter for areas and a getter for items. And that's just going to return area module areas. And this one's going to return items. Okay, so now we have these getters here. They will be useful up here. So we're going to have one panel for each area. So for V, it's not section. It is going to be area in areas. We're going to put the area name. That much is pretty clear. Then here's where things get interesting. For each instance in area dot instances, we're going to do instance dot item dot name. And then we're going to do instance dot quantity. And I believe that this should be sufficient. Yep. It's looking good to me. Let's see what the compiler is saying. Oh, we didn't run it yet. Okay. npm run dev. No issues found. Now, one of the weaknesses of Vue with TypeScript is that you don't get your TypeScript ability in the templates here. It's just standard JavaScript with maybe some Vue extensions. So we didn't get type checking for this, but we do get code completion. So that should be quantity. So let's save that. Okay, so that's done. Now let's try loading this up. So I believe, no, as we don't want to do it in here. We want to do it in Chrome. And what is going to be called? Pantrio 3000. All right, we get errors. Now, here is a fun thing that I've learned about modules, the Vuex module decorators. They lie to you. The cake here This is the biggest lie you've ever seen. Why does it lie? I don't know. I don't know why they made it so that it lies to you. But you can make it not lie. Why do they not do that by default? Again, it's a big question. It's a question. Many people are asking this question. So, I believe that the name of the thing is raw error. So we want raw error true. And if we do this setting in here, it will stop lying to us and it'll tell us what's actually wrong. Let's restart. Network error. Network error. An error occurred while rendering the page. Okay, so that makes a little sense. Let's take a look at what the dev tools say. Blocked by core's policy. No access control. Okay, yeah. So we have to change the cores. Probably. Something wrong here. Pantrio view areas. Okay, well, let's take a look at what our cores is like. The silver bullet. So it's saying API is cool, but we want view, right? Our routes are under view. So let's try that one. Smarty pants. What do you think about now? All right, a little better. Cannot read property for each of undefined. Okay, well, where is our undefined boy? Entities? No, it's going to be in areas, right? It's going to be in here. So instances is undefined. Instances. So what do we have in storage area control? It's item instances. So let's just rename this to instances. And let's, third time's a charm. As they say, third time is no. Cannot set property is initialized of which has only a getter. So here's the thing about state. I don't understand what about this getter bullshit is. You're not supposed to directly assign a state. You're supposed to use mutations. But I was under the impression that you could do it. You're just not supposed to. And I have done it before. But in this case, apparently you can't do it. So let's just let's add a mutation. Mutation. Set initialized. This that is initialized is equal to true. All right. I want my, by the way, I think I mentioned this before, but I don't know why it's not set now. But I want my mutations to be prefixed with an underscore. So let's find, you know what? Good point. While we're at it, we set up the areas, we set up the items, instances, we link them all up, but we don't actually replace them into the state of this. So that's a bad idea. So let's do replace areas with areas. And let's do this, replace items with items. And let's also do this dot set initialized. Okay. So we're finding all sorts of bugs here. Let's go. And we did it. We've done it. We have it. It is done. Yeah, this is the data that we basically set up on the server side. And here it is. It's beautiful. You got to admit, this is kind of great. And I'm loving it. McDonald's, I'm loving it. So, what's next? Well, couple of things. First of all, it's annoying to have to put this in each one of your actions. It should be the default, in my opinion. I have no idea what that other error that lies to you is even for, or why the devs thought it was a good idea. But, you know, I'm going to give them a pass because they made a pretty cool thing and I like using it. No, nobody's nerfed is what they say. And, you know, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's some really great aspect to it that I'm missing. But we're going to set raw error to be true by default for all actions. How do you do it? Well, we got to import config. And then here we're going to do config dot raw error equals true. And there you go. Bob is your uncle there. Get rid of that. Okay. And that should compile. And I mean, if I were to, let's just, let's just verify. It's working. Now I'm gonna do the bad thing again, which is to say this dot is initialized is equal to true, is equal to true, is equal to true. And that's an error. And is it going to give us? Yeah, and it gives us the correct error. It doesn't give us that cake lie. The cake lie no longer applies. So this is a cool thing that you can do to get the raw errors, which are the actual errors. Thing number one. Thing number two. Cool thing. So we have, let me just do this up again. We have lists of areas, and we can get each item in that area. But let's do another list of items and get which areas that each item appears in. So that'll make use of the fact that we have those links, the bidirectional links. So how do we do that? Well, we're basically just going to do the same thing as this, but we're going to loop through items instead. So yeah, for each item in items, blah, blah, blah. Let's see if we get some magic in here. Might want to put some, whatchamacallit. You know what I mean. Class, margin top, maybe 4. That's not what you want. There you go. Put some margin on that bad boy. Put some separation. You got to keep them separated. Don't know if they're separated here. Let's refresh. And yeah, well, I guess that's a margin 4. All right, here we go. So here's the names of the items, and here is the names of places that they appear. We can verify this. So facilis should be in quad, and it should be in libero. There are 2 quads. Quad dolorable. So facilis is in here, and it should also be in libero, and it is in there. So there you go. So now we've got these 2 different views on the same data. It's all working nicely. Let's see if we can create an action to mutate the views. All right, so let's add an action in here. And I guess the most natural action that we would want is an action for adding a new instance into our data set. So let's make it async, even though we're not doing any async stuff with it yet. We will be eventually. Add instance. Now here's the thing about, so this add instance function, we could say it probably wants to take in 3 types of data, right? It wants to take in the item, reference to the item that is going to be added. It's going to reference to the area where the instance is going to exist, and a quantity. But here's the thing, Vuex actions can only take in 1 object. So you've got to pack all of your parameters into 1 payload object if you have multiple parameters. And the Vuex module decorators, they still have that limitation. So you're going to have to do it like that. So how do we do? There's a few ways we could do it. I could create a bespoke object, an interface for that, but we could just do it inline as well. So let's call this one the payload, and the data type of it is going to be, we're going to have item, which is an item, and we're going to have area, which is an area, and we're going to have quantity, which is a number. And we want a mutation to add the instance. Now I believe that this decorator thing, Vuex module decorators, actually has a neat thing where you can create an action that is also a mutator. But I'm just going to stick to the basics here. That might also only be for Vue 3. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly all the things. So add instance. And now you can see why I prefix on my mutations underscore. Because I've got an action called add instance, but I also want a mutation called add instance. So I want to namespace that with this. And these, they follow the same rules. You've got to take in a payload object. It would be nice to create an interface for this, you know, but for right now, we're just going to do it inline. Like this. Now, here's the thing. An instance needs an ID, which is the ID in the database. We're not actually doing anything on the database here. This is all just on the front end for a little test. So we don't have an ID, so we're just going to wing it. But let's try it out here. So we should create a new item instance, and the ID is just going to be, you know, just some random number. What doesn't really matter. The quantity is going to be all right. So it's payload dot quantity, right? And it's payload dot area, and it's payload dot item. And then in here, we're going to do this dot add instance, and we just pass in the payload. We can just forward that right in through. Okay, so we've got this action. Now, from index, what are we going to do? Well, let's create a little function. Async foobar. No, it has to be async, but we're going to make it async right now. So what are we going to do? Well, let's just do the same thing that I did in my test code. So we're going to add an instance to one of the areas. And when the area gets to a certain size, we're actually going to modify the item and see if all the other data follows. So first things first, let's do the test case. So if, well, let's Control Z. Const target area is equal to this dot area module dot areas. We'll say the target area is area 0, the first area. So if target area dot instances dot length is greater than 3, let's make the target area the second one. So if the number of instances gets to be greater than 3, then we are going to do this dot area module dot items 0 dot name. I'm going to change its name to turquoise, because that's what I did in my test code. And then we're just going to return without doing anything else. So this is a little test. It tests a few things. It tests to see if we change something like the name of an item, if all the different sections and all the display will change accordingly. And the other thing it does is it tests the idea of directly mutating the state without committing a mutation or dispatching an action. So we can test out what happens in those cases. And then we're going to do await this dot area module dot add instance. So we're going to dispatch this action, and it's going to be dispatched with the payload. We'll use our IntelliSense to give us information. So we need a member in this object, the payload object that we pass in. We need a member called item, and we'll just do that as this dot area module dot items at 0, right? Because that's the thing we're going to change here. So we want to use the same thing. It'll give us good intel. And the area, that's just the target area that we had already, looked up here. There you go. So we have this method. We need a way of invoking that. So we're going to put in a little control in here. V button ought to do the trick. Let's get rid of this top margin, and we'll just put in a vertical margin in there. And we want an action here. So on click, we want to execute foobar. Sure. And the name will be Farknards. Okay. So, first of all, does it compile? Doesn't like it. Does not like it. Item, area is not assignable to parameter of type item area. Quantity. Ah, I forgot the quantity. See, this is why I love TypeScript, because it's going to tell you about a bunch of things that you didn't even think of. And some of those things that you didn't think of, you won't even know that they exist when you run your program, you test your code. You'll only figure out they exist after you've deployed and some corner case gets hit. I don't like that. Give me my static compilation. What was it called? Quantity. Quantity, obviously. Okay, how do you like me now? No issues found. Okay, let's go to our boy here. We've got stuff. I'm just going to reload here. We've got stuff loaded. So here's the target. If I press here, we get one more boy in here. Delinity. And if we look in here, key voluptabaz has gotten in there. If we press it again, duplicated, right? Now we have 4 things in here. So the next thing, it should hit the other path. It should change the name of this bad boy to turquoise. And you see this changes, and down here this changed. Everything automatically follows suit when you change the data, when you change the model. The view reactively changes. That's what you want. That's what you love. Okay, last thing, we are modifying the state directly. We're mutating it. This is not a good idea. And yeah, if you look in DevTools says, yo jerk, don't do that, you dumbass. Do not mutate Vuex store state outside mutation handlers. Now, why is it bad to do this? Well, there are many reasons. It's bad just from making your code stinky point of view. But this kind of sucks. I don't have my my thing here. 1 second. I gotta lose this incognito. I'll be back. All right, I'm back here, and now I have my view tools, which is, pretty important. We look at view. We can take a look at Vuex. We can see, all the different things that happened, the mutations. The whole history is given here. Replace errors, replace this, set initialized. Yeah, this is what you would expect. I don't know if actions. Yeah, so when we click on any one of these mutations in the history, we can see the state at that time. This is amazing information for debugging, trust me. So here I can see set initialized. If I click this, add instance happens. We can look at the state here. We can see in areas, we have 1, 2, 3 objects in here. If we go to set initialized state, we can see that there are 2 instances. Here, 3 instances. So you can see the changes in the state all recorded in this history. It is great for debugging. It can also be used to implement undo, redo functionality in your application. Let's keep going. Yeah, we just see in here. Now it's got 4. Quite good. Let's hit it again. Turquoise. Okay, cool. Let's go. Yeah, let's go to one of these guys. Object. The item. Name. It's not changed. Why is it not changed? Well, because we mutated it outside of mutation handlers. So now this view tool is not going to be aware of it. The state is going to be desynchronized. And that's not good. That's just dumb. That's bad. Moral of the story here is don't mutate outside of your Vuex mutation handlers, because it'll screw up a bunch of stuff that's cool. It'll still work in the app side, but it leads to bad code that will be more difficult to maintain down the road, and it screws up your ability to use the tools to their full effectiveness. So it's just dumb either way. It's double bad, it's double dumb. So what would we do here if we wanted to make this test less garbage? We would make a mutation. We might say set item name and single thing in here. Now we need two things, right? So that means that we need a payload and item name is string, and then in here we would do item.name is equal to name. That is of course payload.item. Now I'm interested to see if we do it inside the mutation, will it actually be picked up in the tools? And if we do it without an action, will it still all be good? I believe we can do it without an action because there is nothing asynchronous about this. But if we were to, when we did this change, we would usually also want to send that information to the database, in which case we would have to make an action for it. But let's just do it with a bare mutation. We'll just use the mutation from here. So we would do this dot area module dot underscore set item name, and this would be items 0. Wait, we'd have to do it like this. Bam. Item is this. Name is turquoise. And yes. Yes. That seems right. Okay. So let's see if this compiles. Void is not assignable to type string. That's fair because this should be payload. See, I'm making these mistakes all the freaking time, and TypeScript has freaking got my back. There we go. That works. That works. Let's take a look at the console. Bam. Bam. Okay. Are you going to yell at me, console? Console does not yell at me. I forgot the return, didn't I? I believe I forgot the return. I indeed forgot the return. Put that in there. Not that it's a big deal. It works either way, but, you know, for the sake of consistency, yes. And it does not hate me. Now, does it record that state change? That is something I'm not sure of. So we look at this here. We look at items. We look at item 0. Turquoise, it did record the state change. Even though we didn't get at the data from, let me just see here. We didn't get at it through the state here. We actually got at it through an item that's in the state indirectly, but passed in as a reference. But it was able to record that change and understand that that was part of the state that changed. So, I think that's cool. And I mean, if you look at this mutations history, it's great. It tells a story of what's happening. And when you run into a bug and you've got lots of stuff happening, you know, semi-simultaneously in your application, almost concurrently, and you're trying to figure out what happened in what order, having this history here is a beautiful thing. So now we got our Vuex data store all set up in here, ready to go. It's loading the initialized data from the database. In the next video, we're gonna add very simple user interface to, you know, add items, add areas, and add instances, and also change quantities and remove instances. Lots of different operations. We're gonna add those operations into the Vuex data store, and we're also gonna add them on the server side. And so for every one of those operations, there's gonna be actions that, you know, change the data in here, but also in the server, in the database. So lots of stuff to be doing there. and we'll get the beginnings of an application that actually does something for a change. Well, until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like button, helps a lot. And I'll see you soon with some more Pantrio.